With that, welcome you inside this edition of Big Ten Today, fueled by Gatorade. I'm your host, Rick Pizzo. Terrific show coming up. Purdue head coach Barry Odom joins us. Just wrapped up his first spring with the Purdue football program. And in studio, we are joined by Kelly Amonte Hiller, Sam Smith, the head coach and senior midfielder for the number 3 ranked Northwestern women's lacrosse team. And shortly, Mike Huff will be sitting directly to my left as we look ahead to critical conference matchups in baseball coming up this weekend. But we begin with our big story from the WNBA draft, and the first Big Ten pick off the board in that draft, USC forward Kiki Ariafen, taken 4th overall by the Washington Mystics. Ariafen averaged 18 points, more than 8 boards per game last year for the Trojans, and will now be a major part of the rebuilding process taking place in the nation's capital. Here's Ariafen shortly after the biggest moment of her basketball career.
I truly have no words. My heart is still beating super fast. I told myself I wasn't going to get emotional, that I was going to be a big girl. But once your name is called, truly, everything that you've worked hard for, it just flashes through your mind. So I feel, one, super blessed and grateful that the Mystics chose me. I'm super excited to play with Sonia and with Georgia. They're great girls. I've been competing against them, so I'm excited to be teammates now. But yeah, I feel like just this opportunity is such a blessing, and there's really, truly no words to describe how I'm feeling right now.
The next Big Ten player to be chosen was Maryland point guard Cheyenne Sellers. Widely projected as a first-round pick, Sellers actually came off the board midway through the second round, chosen 17th overall by the expansion Golden State Valkyries. A 6'2" point, Sellers averaged more than 14 points, 4 boards, and 4 assists for the Terps last season, and should have the chance to play decent minutes from the jump in Golden State.
Yeah, it's a sense of relief. It's a sense of joy. Sense of gratitude, being grateful for the opportunity. I'm glad Golden State was willing to give a kid a chance. I'm super excited to be part of the new team. I know we're going to be ready to compete. We're going to be ready to win. I'm super excited to get to play with Chloe Bibby again. I played with Kate Martin at the Kelsey Plum camp. So, I'm very familiar with some of my teammates, and, I'm just super excited.
What a week for Sellers, who, by the way, got engaged just a few days ago. Other picks coming from the Big Ten. Iowa's Lucy Olson goes in the second round, as does Delia Daniels of Washington and USC's Rhea Marshall. Third-round selections include Jordan Hobbs from Michigan and Ohio State's Taylor Thierry. Take a look at the updated Big Ten baseball standings. UCLA, after a terrific weekend against Washington, which had come into that series as one of the hottest teams in the Big Ten. Now 12-3 are the Bruins. Iowa has more Big Ten wins. The Bruins have the better winning percentage. You see Oregon, USC, and Illinois making up the rest of the top 5 in Big Ten baseball. We are truly coming down the home stretch, and that's why we welcome in Michael Huff. It was a great weekend for UCLA. Washington took the first game of that 3-game set, then the Bruins came back to take 2 more. And now no rest for the weary as UCLA hits the road to take on Oregon, and without question, the weekend's biggest matchup.
Well, and very excited to see these 2 ball clubs play against each other. It's West Coast versus West Coast, so we're not going to have any travel issues. We are going to have a couple ball clubs that are ranked nationally. UCLA ahead of Oregon right now, where Oregon had been on top of the whole Big Ten for most of the year. And these are 2 teams in the RPI, again, both ranked around 50 or better. So there is going to be strength against strength. Right now, Oregon is looking at a number 4 in terms of hitting, number 3 in terms of pitching as a team. UCLA, number 3 hitting, number 2 pitching, only behind Iowa. So you have strength against strength. And for me, Oregon, the reason they were number 1 in the preseason top 6 by the coaches, the reason they have been at the top in terms of nationally ranking is because right now they have 5 guys, not 1. They have 5 guys with 9 home runs or more, led by Mason Neville, who got a couple more, 1 grand slam yesterday. He's at 17, leading the Big Ten. So this is going to have some incredible power numbers, and for both ball clubs have to be feeling good, especially John Savage and UCLA, knowing that they had, just like you said, taken out a Washington club that had come in so hot, found a way, even though they lost their first game, win the next 2. So the momentum has to be on their side, feeling really good heading up to Eugene.
And you mentioned Neville. How about some of the star power that we'll see up in Eugene this weekend, guys who are probably bound to be playing at the next level not too far from now?
Well, Rock Jalal Kozlowski is the one that jumps to mind. We're going to be talking about him later. He is only a sophomore shortstop, but he could be arguably the #1 prospect in all the Big Ten in terms of the scouts' eyes. Very good probability he's playing on Team USA next year. We're going to talk about him in a little bit, but he is doing everything right for UCLA Bruins. And as a sophomore, he is anchoring a lineup at the top of that order that makes everyone feel comfortable that they just have to just get on base, do their job, not have to do too much, and UCLA is finding a way to win.
Back here in the Midwest, you have a couple of teams trying to keep pace. Iowa just behind UCLA. Took 2 out of 3 from Nebraska, lost the Sunday finale. Still a good weekend for Rick Heller and the Hawks. They'll travel to Michigan. Now, Michigan's on a bit of a heater. They beat up on Mount St. Mary's this past weekend, a team that just can't match them talent-wise.
Nope.
So you kind of take what you will from that series. But this becomes a really critical road trip for the Hawkeyes.
Well, again, both of these teams are sitting well in the Big Ten Conference right now. Iowa, #2. You think about the fact that we have just gotten past the halfway point, and you're 10 games over 500 in conference, 14-4. And for Rick Heller, #1 team pitching ERA in the Big Ten, and a team that wasn't in that top 6. So Rick has found a way again to start putting the chips in place. I think position player-wise, I think the lineup led by Gable Mitchell, Dan Gable's grandson, these guys hit the ball. They go to the opposite field better than anybody else in the Big Ten, understanding there's a lot of hits over there, and they put a lot of pressure on you. So for Iowa, their hitters have impressed me. Pitchers are awesome, as they always seem to be for Rick Heller. But like you said, for Tracy Smith, when you play a team like Mount St. Mary, you're able to then put some freshman, sophomore pitchers. You're able to try a little bit different lineup. You're able to let your guys start to get A, healthy, but B, feel really good about what's going to be happening, and for them to go against a really big challenge with this Iowa pitching staff. It's going to be a lot of fun in Ann Arbor.
You also get to set up your rotation. You don't have to wear guys out because they won games so easily. They built early leads. You can go to that bullpen. You can see some other arms. So a nice setup for Michigan, also at home, Friday through Sunday series. You can all see all 3 games on Big Ten Plus. I think an underrated series, Illinois going out west to play Washington. Yes, as we mentioned, the Huskies lost 2 of 3 to UCLA, but that's against one of the best teams, not just in the conference, in the country. Illinois, meanwhile, we see when their bats come alive, especially Vitas Valancius and other guys, when they get hot offensively, this is a team that can really beat up on opposing pitching staffs.
Yeah, Dan Hartley has to feel so good right now going out west when you think about the fact that they had to place a very good Indiana ball club, and they were able to take 2 out of 3. And not just taking 2 out of 3, the way they took 2 out of 3. Their pitchers stepped up huge, shutting down an incredible offensive juggernaut that is Indiana. But their hitters are now coming through. Their pitchers are now coming through. They're sitting in a really good spot, 9-6, tied for 5th. But guess who else is 9-6? Washington. And Washington has been playing really well under first-year coach Eddie Smith. So this really is exciting in terms of 2 teams that are tied for 5th, 2 teams that have shown at times we're not quite where we want to be, but right now in this point of the season, they both seem to be clicking on all cylinders.
Yeah, and I love matchups like this when you have teams that are so close to each other in the standings, Mike, because there's a new format at the Big Ten tournament this year, and we don't know exactly how it's going to play out. So I think the teams are starting to understand, the coaching staff certainly, how important it is to move up even one notch on that seeding ladder.
Yeah, and so if you can take 2 out of 3, if you can win a series against some of these other teams within the Big Ten, you are going to be seeded better, which means you have an easier path to get to the semifinals.
And speaking of the tournament, for the first time this year, we will see multiple teams left out of, 17 teams going for only so many spots here.
Yes.
And so when you start to look at matchups like Northwestern and Nebraska, you start to think not just about what this means for them in terms of wins and losses this weekend, but what it means a month from now when we get to the final day of the regular season and we're filling out that bracket. A couple teams going to be left behind at home. This is a critical series for both those teams to get on the right side of that line.
As we just mentioned, you want to be winning these series. You now have 2 ball clubs. Nebraska, unfortunate injuries early, which has really stopped Will Bolt's momentum early in the season of being what they were projected to be. And Ben Greenspan at Northwestern, having these kids 2 years after the debacle that was what was in Evanston, playing well, sitting above the line right now at 10, looking at Nebraska, who found a way to win at least one against Iowa, sitting just below that line at 12. So who wins this isn't so much about, well, where am I ahead of each other on the pecking order of the Big Ten rankings, because there's still 3 or 4 more weekends to go. But do I have that leg up against that one-on-one matchup? Do I have that 2 out of 3? Will I have that tiebreaker? And will that put me in a better position when the tournament comes around?
Northwestern came off a wacky weekend series against Michigan State, 11-10 in extra innings Friday, 10-0 wipeout on Saturday, and then a pitcher's duel on Sunday.
Yep.
Who could have seen that coming? But I'm glad you brought up Nebraska with the injuries, because we saw when this team gets it together, knocking off Iowa on Sunday, they did it with offense, they did it with defense, they did it with pitching. I still think this is a dangerous team if they get into the tournament in a postseason one-and-done type scenario.
And they have experience. They are a club that knows what it takes to get there, and they also know what it takes to stay and have success there. So this is one of those ball clubs, a little bit like Indiana, a little bit like Illinois, that if they get hot at the right time, we saw what Penn State did last year. Who knows how far they can go? The big thing is, with 17 teams, only 12 are getting in, so you've got to get in.
Glad you brought up Penn State, because we'll talk more about the Nittany Lions a little bit later, including the job being done by the coach in State College so far this season. But first, Purdue football wrapped its first spring under Barry Odom this past weekend. With the Boiler remake underway, we catch up with the Purdue head man for his take on both the short and long-term future in West Lafayette. Spring ball version number 1 is wrapped in West Lafayette. For first-year Boilermaker head coach Barry Odom, plenty of questions still to be answered for the Boilers, most notably at quarterback. Odom did hit the portal hard during its first open period. He's expected to do the same when it reopens Wednesday, meaning the 25 Boilers will look very little like the 24 version, which struggled to a winless season inside the Big Ten. Our big interview takes us to West Lafayette, welcoming Purdue head coach Barry Odom as the Boilermakers just wrap up spring ball. Coach, thanks for being with us. I know you got to finish with a little bit of a different look in a spring game style event on Saturday. What did you see and what did you like?
Thanks for having me on. Great to see you again. You know, the progress we made from practice 1 to practice 15 was substantial, every single area of our program. And then the progress that our team made, fortunately, we were able to stay pretty healthy throughout spring practice. I thought that our kids did a great job on wanting to be coached. I thought that they were hungry to try to make a lot of progress in, our base offense, defense, and kicking game. And then, from a assistant coaching standpoint, they flooded them with information. I mean, we were very aggressive on the install. I think that, the number of rep count, that's why we changed our Saturday just a little bit. Instead of just a spring game, we had about an hour and a half long practice, which we needed. And then we had an opportunity to scrimmage some there at the very end in some situational football. So our guys got a lot better in every single situation. I thought by position group, we made progress in the way that we needed to. We've certainly got a long ways to go in what we want to do, but the progress has shown up ever since we stepped foot on campus in the way that our kids have attacked every single week.
How did you approach spring in terms of what you and your staff wanted to be the biggest focus when you were looking at this group from a big picture perspective and every single guy that was out there, not just position by position?
Yeah, you look at just the fundamental development that it takes every single position, the fundamental techniques, the eye discipline, the on-snap footwork, the hand placement, the communication piece, and then the foundation of how you're going to play ball. The ability to try to find ways to run the ball, to stop the run on defense, to be a lead in special teams. It all comes back to your fundamentals and how you play and the habits that we developed throughout spring practice and back in January. Those things will be exposed on game day. We understand that on how important that is for the development of this program and ultimately what's the 2025 team going to look like? How good can we get before that last Saturday in August? The race between now and then, how good can we get? So we've made a lot of progress. We understand there's a lot yet out there for us to continue to improve on.
Barry, the transfer portal has been, will continue to be part of not just your story, but everybody's story. But in the first year and with roster turnover, you are going to rely on the portal fairly heavily. So what are the challenges and opportunities with a transfer class of this size? And this is before the portal window reopens on Wednesday.
Yeah, I think number one, we're a high school recruiting program. We signed a really solid class this past off season in December signing. We're going to our 26 class is off to a great start on what that looks like. We also understand the importance of trying to get whenever the ruling is handed down on what our roster size is going to look like. We've got to be aggressive in trying to piece together what that looks like on the best 105 or whatever the number that is going to be. It's got to be the best that we can possibly get it. And some of that is going to happen through the transfer window and portal, either in 4-year transfers or 2-year transfers on what that looks like. So we'll be very, very aggressive in that market. We've got open spots on our roster to be able to fulfill that. And, I know that the time of when it happens throughout the season with this portal window after spring practice, you'd like to think what you've got in your own roster on what you've worked and developed from January until today, but that may change on Wednesday as the next portal window opens up. So, we feel like we're ahead of the game a little on maybe position of need on trying to fulfill that. We've got to see what becomes available once Wednesday hits here in the next 10 days after that. But we'll be as aggressive as we can, being very select and direct on adding to our current roster.
All right, Barry, let's dive into some position groups. My understanding is that the quarterback competition remains exactly that, a competition. What did you see from the guys that were able to go full go during your spring ball?
Yeah, I think you look at the development, Coach Henshaw there with the quarterback room and then Coach Henson as the coordinator. They did a great job in the offense. No matter who's in the game right now, we feel really that the playbook's not going to change. They've all got a skill set that fits what we're doing on offense. I think there's elements of quarterback run game in there. We've been able to stretch the field vertically and some of the things we're doing in the passing game. And it'll be a great competition. How important now the rest of April, May, June, and July are in the foundation of your program and putting that together. And a lot of it is how far can we get the quarterback and that position, the depth on what that looks like, get them the reps, from now until we start in August. It'll be really important. And I think the leadership of those guys in that room will really take over the team on the offensive side.
I know you had several skill position players that are kind of dealing with some injury and weren't able to go as hard as they would have liked to have gone, or some that weren't able to go really during spring ball. Among those who were able to go, did anybody kind of jump out with speed, skill, or ability, and you think to yourself, man, that could be a player that we're really going to rely on in the fall?
Yeah, I look at, a couple guys just to single out. Denylin Morissette was a returning player, was on the roster last year, really had a great spring. How he played when he didn't have the ball in his hands really stood out to me. He worked in a leadership role job. Our tight end, George Burheen, had a great spring. He's got tremendous athletic ability, really from practice one to the end of practice of spring ball. Really excited about those two. Jesse Watson, another receiver that had a really great camp for us. And there are a number of guys that started to emerge. And again, I think that position group got better as the spring went on. Charles Ross was a transfer from USC that came in January and really was playing at a high level when we finished off spring practice.
Barry, defensively, which is where you spent your time as an assistant and coordinator, your defenses, when they've played their best, have always been ultra aggressive. How do you ensure that this unit is built to do that and has the mindset to do that?
Well, I think a lot of it, depends on how well we can teach the scheme. Are they confident in it? Do they understand what their role is? How many reps can we get at the blitz tracks on how to play effectively? Understand where your help is, when you can go take your shot. And I think Coach Sheeran and the defensive staff did a great job on teaching the scheme throughout the course of spring practice, where, about practice 11 or 12, we were really hitting our stride. And guys, when you understand what you're doing, you can play with great speed you can just cut loose and go play, and that's a big part of it. So I think the understanding of us being able to teach that, doing and building the defense around what the skill set of your players are, and then putting them in position to be able to go showcase that. It was fun this spring to be able to put it together because we do have some athletes here that can really run, and the understanding and putting them in the right spots. I think from start to finish, we made a lot of progress on that side of the ball.
Barry, before we let you go, I know you have a lot of work to do before opening weekend, but I always love to look at team schedules and see what jumps out to me. When I look at yours, I look at how amazing your home schedule is this year. Among the teams coming to Ross-Ade, you have USC, Illinois, Ohio State, and Indiana, among others. So what do you hope to get out of your home crowd and be able to use as a home field advantage when you're playing those teams on your own turf?
Well, one thing that I look at, number one, the league from top to bottom is so strong. Great coaches, tremendous players. You look at how to create home field advantages for your team. And you look at the passion of the fan base of Purdue University and Purdue athletics, it's unmatched. So I know last year, I wasn't here, obviously, but they sold out every home game. I've met with the student groups as many times as I can on trying to create, the Ross-Ade Brigade, trying to create what that's going to look like for us. 15,000 students in the south end zone, the way that they can create and help us gain momentum. I know I've got to coach and we've got to play winning football, but I know that the fans and the people of Purdue are excited about what we're going to do Saturdays in the fall, and I look forward for a great special evenings that we make memories in Ross-Ade Stadium together.
Purdue head coach Barry Odom, kind enough to join us on Big Ten Today. Barry, I know you're always busy. You get perhaps even busier tomorrow. Wish you the best of luck with all the rest of the offseason stuff. Can't wait to see your team on the field this coming fall.
Thanks, guys. See you soon.
Up next here on Big Ten Today, a very special in-studio visit from Northwestern Lacrosse as the nation's number 3 joins us live ahead of Thursday's matchup with Michigan for the Cross Night in Chicago. Thursday marks Lacrosse Night in Chicago. Number 3 Northwestern welcoming Michigan to the Lake Show. Forecast calls for a perfect evening, complete with fan interaction, appearances from NU alums like Izzy Skane and Aaron Kuykendall, and of course a terrific matchup between two of the Big Ten's best. Speaking of the best, we are thrilled to have Northwestern in our studio for a special appearance. Head coach Kelly Amonte Hiller, senior midi Sam Smith with us. Kelly, let's start with Thursday night. A lot of excitement goes into this build-up. Of course, Michigan also coached by one of your former players, and Hannah Nielsen. What's the best part about what we'll see on Thursday night on the lake?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, we've just been really excited about the growth of women's sports across the board. And I think Big Ten has really been a true leader in that, seeing what Iowa did with Caitlin Clark and, playing the game and blowing it out on the football field, and then Nebraska volleyball. We kind of talked about that this year, and just with the success that we've had and the notoriety that we've had, we wanted to do something big. So with what we saw this fall on the lake with football, it was just an electric environment, and people coming out, having a great time, being on the lakefront, and it's just really a special place. And so we're trying to create something great. We have an incredible rivalry with Michigan, obviously welcoming home Hall of Famer, Hannah Nielsen, one of our greatest ever. So it's just a really great setup, and it's a great opportunity for people to come out and see a sport that is just really fast-paced, really exciting, high scoring, and once you see it, you really fall in love with it.
And there'll be some great fan interaction on Thursday night. And Sam, I'm sure for you as players, you get to look on the sideline, especially when you guys go outside, and you have so many young fans, young girls who idolize and look up to you. When you see them watching you as you play, what are you thinking about?
Yeah, everyone on our team was once one of those girls. And I think, especially for me, coming from a more of a non-traditional lacrosse area, being from California, I really looked up to a lot of those college girls who were from areas like mine. And I just think whenever I go out there, I'm playing to inspire the younger generation just like I was. So,
mentioning that you're from California, I'm curious, from the West Coast, from a perspective outside of the Midwest, when you're playing high school, when you're playing that high-level club lacrosse, what's the thought process and the perspective of Northwestern as a program in the West Coast and other non-Midwest areas?
Yeah, I always looked up to Northwestern and Kelly for being courageous to recruit girls that weren't from traditional areas. I mean, like some of our best players, Izzy, obviously from Michigan, not a traditional lacrosse area. Then you have other schools who are powerhouses who are only recruiting from like Long Island, Maryland. So I always thought Northwestern was a place that I really wanted to go, and I wanted to prove that girls from non-traditional areas could play at this high level.
And one of those ways to recruit those players, right, Kelly, is to be consistently in the national spotlight. And already this year, you've played teams that were ranked at the time you played them number 1, number 2, number 4, number 6, and number 11. You're number 3, so there's not a lot of low numbers left there. From a coach's perspective, I know it's exciting to play those games. Doesn't it get a little bit stressful when they go back to back to back like that?
We have had a difficult run over the last couple of weeks, but, you know, I'm just a big believer. If you want to be the best, you have to play the best. And I would much rather, you know, have setbacks during the season and have that learning and have that growth, you know, during that regular season where we can evaluate ourselves, we have time, and it doesn't end our season. So that's just been my philosophy all along, and I think our players really thrive on it. They want the challenge. That's why they came to a place like Northwestern. They want the challenge in the classroom. They want the challenge on the field, and we love to compete. So it's really exciting for us.
Well, won't let Coach put words in your mouth, but I'm sure you agree, right, from the player's perspective, to play a BC, a UNC, a Maryland, a Syracuse, all in the same season. What's that like from a player's perspective?
I love it. I think that I have the most fun in the games that are the hardest. Like playing those top teams, one, we get a chance to prove ourselves and really cement ourselves as one of the top teams in the nation. And two, it's just a great battle. And I'm a super competitive person, as are a lot of the girls on our team. So we really thrive in those environments.
Kelly, it's hard to believe. If we count the club season back in 2001, this is the 25th year for you as the head coach at Northwestern. How hard is that to believe for you, and how proud are you of what you, the entire staff, and the program have built?
Yeah, you know, it is really hard to believe. You know, I'm of the mindset of, you know, stay in the present moment, really focus on what you're doing and really enjoy that. But when I take a second to reflect and just think about all the experiences, all the people that I've been exposed to, I'm just really super grateful. I'm grateful to be part of this athletic department and the university in its own right. It's just a really special place. I've had a lot of chances to leave Northwestern, and I just love this place. I love what it represents, and I love working with players like Sam. I mean, it's just a really, really special thing, and it inspires you every day.
Certainly inspirational to be on that field when you get to be outside and the lake is there and the backdrop is unbelievable. I'm curious, what do you hear from other coaches and teams that get to play outside at Northwestern for the first time?
We probably don't hear that much, but we see a lot of, like, you know, taking pictures when they get to our field initially, and, you know, things like that, going into the lake maybe after they walk through or practice. So, you know, there's no place like it. I think we have the best facilities in the country, and you know, every day we walk out there, we are grateful.
Sam, obviously, because of the weather in Evanston, you're not able to play there all the time, to play sometimes inside Ryan Fieldhouse. I'm curious, for those who are kind of uninitiated, who's never played indoor versus outdoor lacrosse, how much of a difference does it actually make in the style of game that you play based on whether you're inside or outside?
I would say not that much, honestly. We try and not focus on things we can't control, the weather definitely being one of those things. So I guess if it's colder or raining, you have to focus on whether the pocket of your stick is going to stretch out or tighten up. But honestly, we just continue to play our game, stay true to ourselves, and focus on the things we can control.
All right, this is going to be a kind of off the beaten path question, but some folks who aren't that familiar with women's lacrosse, who I've gotten to watch games, always ask me the same question. Why are they checking the stick after every single goal, even if it's the same player that's scoring back-to-back? So is there an easy answer to that question?
Probably not. I think that they want to make sure the legality of the stick is there every time they score. You can adjust your stick to make the pocket bigger pretty easily. And like Sam said, in weather situations, sometimes the pocket will grow as the game goes on. So they want to make sure that there's a fair playing, marker, and that everyone has a legal stick. So that's why they check it every time. It might be a little bit of overkill, in my opinion, but we'll go with it.
Yeah, but it leads to those great celebrations that are actually, the first time somebody watched the women's lacrosse game, like, wow, they're really fired up. Why are they throwing the stick on the ground? No, it's because they absolutely have to. So there's the answer for all the uninitiated. All right, before we finish up, let's get back to Thursday night. And Hannah has done a great job at Michigan. I want to get both your perspectives on this team that I know you've been scouting, that you're very familiar with, playing in the same conference. What makes them dangerous? How do you get the job done Thursday night?
Yeah, Hannah's a phenomenal coach. She knows the game. She's a she was a smart player, and now she's a smart coach. So I think, we just have to honestly focus in on ourselves. We've been focusing in on improvement, getting better every day, having a great week of practice and a great week of preparation. And I think, gaining possession is an important thing. Sam does an amazing job with that on the draw control, and that's going to be a key component. And just playing together. I think those are truly some great keys for us.
What about for you individually and from a team perspective?
Yeah, Michigan is always a great competitor. They're great on the draw. I think it's for that aspect of my game, I think it's going to take a lot of focus, and I'm excited to get the prep work in these next 2 days to really lock in on that. They're just such a gritty team, but as I said before, we love playing these tougher teams, so we're super excited about that.
Sam Smith, Kelly Amonte Hill, I truly appreciate you guys making the trip to our studio here in Chicago. Safe travels on the short ride back to Evanston. Look forward to seeing you guys on Thursday night.
Thanks for having us. Go Cats.
Thank you.
All right, time for us to go a little deeper between the hedges. Apologies to Georgia football fans. With Mike Huff as he rejoins the show. It's interesting to hear a coach talk about one of his players as being good enough to be both a position player and a pitcher in the majors. Now, we're not saying that Ethan Hedges is the next Shohei Ohtani. What we're saying is that this kid's skill set is remarkable.
And it very much goes to what my first conversations with the scouts that I talked about. Tell me a little bit about USC. Everyone I talked to said, well, this kid, third base and pitcher. And I took a step back to say, okay, we don't think one way or the other. And everyone I talked to said, no, we're not sure yet. We know he has the bat. He is their number one prospect in our eyes. But when you hear what Coach Stankiewicz talks about, and you think about the way that Andy coached as he played in the major leagues, as he coaches these guys, they're hard-nosed. They want to hit the ball. They want to play hard. They want to hustle all the time. And what you just heard from Coach Stankiewicz is that here's a guy that he's not afraid, almost wants to put on the bump in that ninth inning with 2 guys on and 2 outs to get that last out because those juices flowing. But clearly, everything that Ethan is doing to this point at third base, at the plate, is allowing Coach Stankiewicz to get into a position of a lot of wins, which they've got right now.
Now, that being said, when Major League scouts look at guys like this, I understand how important position players are. You got to hit, you got to get on base. If someone thinks you can come to the majors and immediately make an impact on the mound, in most cases, that's where they are going to push you. Isn't that true?
Yes, and they're going to give you a chance to fail as a hitter, but when you have an arm and you like those pressure situations, which very few pitchers do in college, that what gets, I believe, the pro scouts' juices flowing. That's when they say, this is a guy we want in an organization, and yes, we'll give him both, but there's a little bit more tilt toward that pitching.
Now, Darren Dreifert's kind of the first guy that comes to mind way back in the day, really good both ways, but you get to the bigs, you can throw like that, we understand. how important the premium is on pitchers. We discussed at length this weekend's big-time series for UCLA against Oregon. Well, they get a warm-up against a team from the same state that's ranked even higher. Coming up tonight, it's UCLA and number 6 Oregon State. You can catch every pitch starting at 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific right here on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. A few more minutes here with Michael Huff. It's never too early to offer way too early season-ending awards. Yes, we know the Big Ten tournament doesn't start until the middle of May. It's only the middle of April. But let the conversation begin. And why don't we start with the guy who makes the calls, the Big Ten Coach of the Year. Yes, a lot can happen over the final 4 or 5 weeks of the regular season. But if you had to vote right now, who's the Big Ten Coach of the Year?
Mike Gambino. Penn State. You think about the fact that he has taken a program that is not really well known for baseball, championship game last year in his first year, and what has he done this year? 22-12, sitting firmly in the top half of the Big Ten. And I tell you what, he has got these guys and this program totally going in the right direction. I'm going to hedge a lot. There's a guy like Ben Greenspan at Northwestern, Rick Heller, who is not in the top 6. But right now, Mike Gambino for sure.
Yeah, Rick Heller is a guy, though, he seems to have kind of the formula.
Yes.
And obviously has arms to work with. I think Gambino is really starting to build this program. We saw Penn State on a nice win streak recently. This is a team that has some quality wins as well. They're not just trying to be contenders in the Big Ten. They're trying to be NCAA tournament qualifiers, and Gambino certainly has them headed in the right direction toward doing that. Of course, it does come down not to the X's and O's, but the Jimmies and Joes. And we've seen over the last couple of years more and more starter-ready freshmen, guys who come in straight out of high school and are ready to play. Who right now, at this point, is your Big Ten Freshman of the Year?
And we've said this a lot. Indiana has these bats. Jeff Mercer also has a culture in Bloomington that brings bats and powerful bats. Right now, first baseman Jake Henley, right? 360 batting average. Not too bad. The big lefty. He's got unbelievable pop. 7 home runs, a 1.021 OPS, 33 RBIs, and typically as a freshman, you're trying to put in the bottom of the order. But I tell you what, if you have to go to Indiana and look at what they have in the top half of the order, and then you come to this freshman, think you get a little breather, it's not going to happen. He can just bomb the ball.
Yeah, you got a terrific swing. You can see him in that piece of video going to both fields. He can go the opposite way. He can go the opposite way with power. He's a guy that you could put any spot in that lineup, and that is a huge advantage. And one of the best things about freshmen, you know, in all likelihood, they're coming back to play the sophomore season, and they're going to get better. To the reliever of the year, I always think this is kind of an underrated award, especially late in the season, tournament time, how important the bullpen really is. Right now, who's the reliever of the year in the conference?
Well, again, very difficult. There's a couple guys I can go with, but for me right now, when I think about a reliever, who's dependable, who's going to give me some innings? So I'm going to actually go with Brody Purcell from USC. This guy, 18 appearances, 26 innings pitched, 33 strikeouts, only 11 walks, 4 saves, a cool 1.04 ERA, kind of followed by Mike Villone from Purdue. The reason I like Mike, 2.6 ERA, nothing wrong with that, but 14 appearances, 38 innings pitched. So it could have gone either way. I'm just tipping my hat to Brody.
And obviously, both those guys have plenty of baseball to play before the official awards come out at the end of the regular season. As for the starter of the year, I'm guessing that this had to be probably your toughest decision because there are 2 guys that are clearly right now showing themselves as the cream of the crop when it comes to starting pitchers.
And we have seen it all year. These 2 have been consistent. I'm sure everyone knows who we're talking about. Joseph Jerza and
Gerwa from
Michigan State, and Obermuller, Cade Obermuller from Iowa. I'm giving it to Cade. And you ready for this? 1 and 2 in terms of innings pitched with Jerza over Obermuller, but just barely. 1 and 2 in strikeouts. Obermuller 76, Jerza 67. Cade has a complete game to his credit. A 1.65 for Jerza ERA, 2.18 for Obermuller. But I want Obermuller because last year, 73 strikeouts. This year he's got 76, and he's got a few more games. Last year, 41 walks. This year, only 16. So I'm tipping my cap to say to Cade, great job making adjustment, great job pounding that strike zone, and that's why he's number 1.
Yeah, both Obermuller and Jerwa certainly have a major league future. Scouts love to flock to their games when they are pitching.
And they are.
Big Ten Player of the Year without about a month left to go in the regular season is who?
Yeah, there were 3 guys. This was hard for me. We've talked about Mason Neville at Oregon, 17 home runs. Corbin Dickerson, Indiana, 58 RBIs, leading the Big Ten. Both these guys hitting 325, 350, but really Rock Chalowski. He was one from UCLA that, as we've talked about in the past, as I talked to the scouts, this is a guy that's first-round talent. This is only a sophomore playing short. This is a guy batting second. Oh, and by the way, leading the Big Ten with 50 runs, 13 doubles, 11 home runs, and as a sophomore in the Big Ten, top-ranked team, more walks than strikeouts. So maturity for this sophomore, that's the reason he gets my nod.
I love that quick, short swing through the zone. Ton of power at impact. Really good defensively at shortstop as well. For Mike Huff and our terrific lists of guests here on this edition of Big Ten Today and everybody at the Big Ten Network, I'm Rick Pizzo. Hope to see you again next time.